I'm Dustin. Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. It's your Week 10 waiver wire. Crazy we're already in Week 10. Kind of a quiet week in terms of potential waiver wire pickups, but like always, there's plenty to talk about. I shoot this before the Monday night games. I rank these on how I would pick them up if they're all available in my league based on 0.5 PPR. So keep those things in mind. And I always start with my pickup of the week. Not necessarily the guy I would pick up if all these guys were available, but just the guy I think that's going to get the most attention on the wire. And this is brought to you by FanDuel. If you haven't been playing in our Beat the Experts game, click the link in the description. Go ahead and get in there. If you haven't signed up, sign up, play. It's a lot of fun. It's a $5 game. You win the cash just like you normally would in a regular tournament. And if you get in the top 2 and you beat all the experts, you get a free entry into next week's Sunday Million. So check that out if you haven't already. My pick of the week this week is Mr. Duke Johnson. You know, they cleaned house with their coaching staff. And hey, we have this guy named Duke Johnson. He's really good. Maybe we should get him more involved. He had a monster Week 9 after what's been a very quiet year for him so far. You know, and when Hyde got shipped out of town, we really thought that Duke was going to start getting more and more touches, but that hasn't really happened until Week 9. Like I said, monster week. And he is going to be somewhat dependent on, being probably playing from behind. He'll get some catches, but he's only been averaging about 3 catches per year up until this point. Last year, he was averaging about 5 catches a year. So if the Browns were smart, hopefully their new coaches are, they'll get him more involved. They'll continue to get him involved. He is too good of a player to not be getting more touches. He's only on a 50% of leagues, so obviously any type of PPR league, deeper PPR league, I think he will be at least a flex option each week. Let's talk about some other running backs. Mike Davis with Seattle. Carson, he started Week 9, left with injury. I think that's going to be something that might linger for him. Davis has been good in relief, and he would be the one to own if Carson misses any time. Don't forget about Gio. Looks like he's going to be back soon. And then I do want to start talking about, got Malcolm Brown on this graphic and then Spencer Ware on the next one. It's time to start thinking about handcuffing your studs. You're through most of the buys. Take a look at your buys moving forward. See about your bench spots, what makes the most sense. But Malcolm Brown, Spencer Ware, I think it's time to own those guys if you own Gurley or Hunt. So keep those guys in mind if you're just looking for some bench spots. And then I do want to talk about McGuire. He just came back for the Jets. And then Sproles looks like he's going to be back soon for the Eagles. Both those guys could have some value in deeper PPR leagues, so keep them in mind. Just don't forget about those guys, especially Sproles. This is his last year, so if he comes back, he's going to want to give one last push to show us that he's got some left in the tank. So Sproles could be an interesting guy down the stretch. Wide receiver, I want to talk about DJ Moore with Carolina. It just really seems like they're going to get him involved moving forward. I like that they're getting some rushes in the rush game, and I do think he's going to be a part of that offense for the rest of the year, and he's just going to keep getting more and more involved. And Carolina offense has looked good. I've liked what I've seen with them. Anthony Miller with Chicago, only on 10% of leagues. Kind of the same deal. I just think he's going to keep getting more and more involved. I mean, obviously he's been getting a few more touches, a few more targets with Allen Robinson being out. But it just seems like him and Trubisky are very much on the same page at this point. And, the game script for Week 9 was not good for receivers for the Bears with them scoring 2 defensive touchdowns. But Miller still led the team in targets, was very involved in that offense. Cordero Patterson, I mean, hey, maybe this guy might end up getting running back eligibility. We'll see what happens with him. It could be one of those situations like Ty Montgomery a couple years ago. Is he a running back? Is he a receiver? But Cordero Patterson has looked good, and he's looked good as a running back. Sony Michel's going to be back soon. But with James White getting banged up and them not really seeming comfortable going to Barner, Patterson might, at this point, be kind of the goal line handcuff to Sony Michel. James White's always going to get his in the passing game. But Patterson has looked good. Very interesting what he's doing out there with New England. So someone to take a look at. A few more to talk about. John Ross with the Bengals. The reports on A.J. Green have not been that promising. As I'm shooting right now, I haven't heard the extent of the injury. But John Ross, if he can stay healthy, could be a guy that gives you some value down the stretch. if AJ misses time. And then Adam Humphries, I want to talk about, only on 5% of leagues. Monster game week 9. In deeper PPR leagues, I think he will have a solid floor each week, and he does have a decent ceiling. With Fitzmagic throwing him the ball, and that defense is so terrible. They're always kind of seems to be in shootouts, playing from behind late in the game. So Humphries is someone that, I do think he will be somewhat inconsistent in terms of his ceiling games where he really blows up, but I like his floor most weeks. Move over to quarterback, and Fitzmagic, I want to talk about only on his 70% of leagues. He was scooped up in a ton, obviously, last week, but he showed us that he's a QB1 when starting, just because of the way that the team's set up with their defense being so terrible and them just needing Fitzmagic to throw the ball a ton. So I don't mind him. Nick Mullins, I want to talk about for the 49ers. He looks like their man now at this point. And if you watch the game and you're hearing the commentators and what they're saying about his work ethic, it's very interesting. There could be something to this. Deeper leagues, 2 QB leagues, I wouldn't be, picking him up in, 10-team, 1-quarterback leagues, but he is someone that I think could have some more big games. And then keep an eye on Lamar Jackson. Depending on what happens with Baltimore's record, if the coaching staff gets desperate, then Flacco might not be playing well. There could be I'm just saying, there's a chance we could have a QB switch down the stretch, and they just want to give Jackson a run, see what he can do. That team is trending towards not making the playoffs, so we'll see what happens, but I think at the very least, Jackson's someone to keep a close eye on. Tight end, Jack Doyle, I want to talk about. He'll be coming off of his bye, heading into week 10, so he wasn't picked up in as many leagues as he would have been. He's only owned about 40%, so he's still out there in a ton. Chris Herndon, I want to talk about. It's starting to be a consistent thing at this point. He didn't score a touchdown in week 9, but he did have another 4 catches for 62 yards. And at this point, he is proving to be a consistent tight end, and he's on the cusp of being a low-end tight end 1 at this point. So he needs to be owned in a lot more than 15% of leagues. Moving on to defense, got a few pick-up-and-play defenses for you. The Chargers, they had a solid week 9. Week 10, they're at Oakland. We've seen what that Oakland offense has been doing. Not really having much confidence in them. So Chargers only on 55% of leagues. I like them. Then we got the Jets at home against Buffalo. And then we got Green Bay at home against Miami. Both of those teams should have solid success on the defensive side. They're only on 40% and 25% of leagues. So that's my pick up and play defenses. Good luck on the wire this week. Hopefully your all's teams are doing well. And if you have questions, post them in the comments. Josh picks his questions for his flex show that he shoots later in the week straight from the comments from this video. Be sure to mention if it's standard or PPR league. So leave those in there if you want a chance for your question to be answered on his show.